My name is Marissa Cole, and for 11 years, I thought Dana Whitfield was the closest thing I had to a sister. We lived 4 houses apart on Willow Bend Lane, in a quiet corner of Asheville, North Carolina, where the mountains turn purple at dusk and everybody waves at everybody. We carpooled our kids to soccer practice. We split a bottle of wine on Friday nights on my back porch, and when I finally scraped together enough courage and enough savings to open my own bakery, Dana was the first person I called. She cried with me. She hugged me. She said, "Marissa, I am so proud of you." 18 months later, she would burn everything I built to the ground, and she would smile while she did it. But before I tell you how she tried to destroy me, and how I made sure she never touched anyone's dream again, let me ask you something. If you're new here, and you love stories about ordinary people who get pushed too far and rise up smarter, sharper, and stronger than the people who wronged them, this is exactly the kind of story we tell on this channel. Hit that subscribe button right now, tap the bell so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from tonight. Trust me, you're going to want to be here for the ending of this one. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. I was 36 years old when I opened Cole & Crumb, a small bakery on Haywood Street, 3 blocks from the farmer's market. I had spent 9 years working the pastry line at a hotel downtown, and every dollar of my severance, plus a small business loan from a local credit union, went into that storefront. My ex-husband thought I was insane. My mother thought it was reckless. Dana Whitfield was the only person who told me to do it anyway. "You have the best hands in this town," she told me over coffee. "Somebody's going to make money off your talent. Might as well be you." Dana had her own small business, a home-based catering company called Whitfield Table, mostly weddings and corporate lunches. We weren't competitors. We were, I thought, teammates. I referred clients to her. She referred clients to me. When I couldn't handle a big wedding cake order because Cole & Crumb was still just me and one part-time employee, Dana would come in on weekends and help me pipe buttercream roses until midnight, laughing about our ex-husbands and our aching feet. She was there the day I signed the lease. She was there the morning I unlocked the doors for the very first time, and she brought a bouquet of sunflowers and cried harder than I did. I trusted her with my recipes. That was my first mistake, though it took me a long time to understand it as one. I trusted her with the one thing that made Cole & Crumb different from every other bakery within 20 miles. My grandmother's brown butter pecan sticky bun recipe, refined over 3 years of testing, that had people driving in from Charlotte just to buy a dozen on Saturday mornings. It was written by hand in a notebook I kept in a drawer in my office, a drawer Dana had access to, because I trusted her enough to give her a key to my shop for early morning deliveries when I couldn't be there myself. Cole & Crumb grew fast. Within a year, I had 4 employees, a second oven, and a waiting list for custom cakes that stretched 2 months out. Local news did a segment on me. A regional magazine named us Best New Bakery in Western North Carolina. I remember calling Dana the second I saw the article, screaming into the phone with joy, and she screamed right back. "We should celebrate," she said. "Dinner, my treat." I didn't know it yet, but that dinner was the beginning of the end. About 2 months after that magazine article, I noticed something strange. A new bakery had opened on Marymount Avenue, less than 3 miles from mine. It was called Whitfield & Wheat. The branding was soft pastel green and cream, almost identical to the palette I had chosen for Cole & Crumb the year before. I told myself it was a coincidence. Asheville has a lot of bakeries. Pastel green is a popular color. Then a regular customer, a sweet older woman named Ruth who came in every Tuesday for a cinnamon roll, mentioned something offhand. "Oh, I tried that new place on Marymount," she said. "Whitfield & Wheat. Their sticky buns taste just like yours, honey, almost exactly the same." My stomach dropped, but I still didn't want to believe it. Dana was my friend. Dana had held my hand at my father's funeral 8 months earlier. Surely this was a coincidence. I drove to Whitfield & Wheat myself that Saturday morning, wearing sunglasses like I was in some kind of spy movie, feeling ridiculous the entire time. I walked in, and there she was, Dana, in a green apron, behind a counter selling brown butter pecan sticky buns that tasted, when I bought one and bit into it in my car outside, exactly like the recipe I had inherited from my grandmother. not similar, exactly the same. Whitfield and Wheat, it turned out, wasn't even really Dana's business. She had partnered with her brother-in-law, a man named Craig Pruitt, who owned 3 other food service properties in Buncombe County and had deep pockets and an aggressive marketing budget. Dana had brought him my recipes, my branding concepts, and, I would later learn, copies of my supplier contacts, all things she had access to over the years as my closest friend and occasional shop key holder. Craig funded a bakery designed, almost feature for feature, to compete directly with mine and undercut my prices by 15%. I confronted her 3 days later, standing in her driveway, my hands shaking. She didn't even bother denying it with much conviction. "Marissa, recipes aren't legally protected unless you copyrighted the actual written formula, and even then, you can't patent a flavor," she said, arms crossed, like she'd rehearsed it. "I didn't steal anything. I got inspired by watching you work. That's allowed." "You had a key to my shop, Dana." "You had access to my grandmother's notebook." "Prove it," she said, and shut the door in my face. That was the moment I understood. This had never been friendship to Dana. It had been reconnaissance. What followed was 6 of the hardest months of my life. Whitfield and Wheat had money behind it that I didn't have. They ran ads on local radio. They offered a loyalty punch card that gave away a free dozen after every 10 purchases, something I couldn't afford to match. Slowly, my Saturday morning line, the one that used to stretch out the door, started to shrink. Worse, Dana wasn't finished. She started telling mutual friends, carefully, casually, over brunch, that I had always been a little unstable, that my divorce had changed me, that she'd heard from someone at the credit union that Cole and Crumb was behind on loan payments. None of it was fully true, but it was close enough to true, seated in just the right ears, that it started to poison how people in our small social circle looked at me. My best friend of 11 years had turned into a rumor mill aimed directly at my reputation, because a damaged reputation meant fewer customers walking through my door and more walking through hers. By the 5th month, I genuinely believed I was going to lose the bakery. I sat in my car in the parking lot after closing one night, sales report open on my phone, and I cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I almost gave up. I drafted a text to my landlord asking about breaking the lease early. I never sent it. Instead, I called my cousin Priya, who is a small business attorney in Charlotte, and I told her everything. And Priya said something I've never forgotten. "Marissa, you keep talking about what Dana took from you. Stop. Let's talk about what she left behind, because people like her always leave evidence. They're too arrogant not to." That phone call changed everything. Priya walked me through what North Carolina law actually protects, and it was more than Dana had led me to believe. A recipe itself generally isn't protected by copyright. That part was true. But trade secrets are a different matter entirely, and North Carolina, like most states, follows a version of the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. If I could show that my recipe formulation, combined with my supplier list, cost structure, and specific branding language, constituted a trade secret that I had taken reasonable steps to protect, and that Dana had accessed it through a position of trust and used it to unfairly compete against me, I might have a real civil claim. Not a slam dunk, but real. Priya also pointed out something I hadn't considered. Dana still had a spare key to my shop. If she had ever entered Cole and Crumb without my knowledge to photograph documents or copy files, that could constitute more than a civil issue. It could edge into unauthorized access, depending on what evidence existed. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I started paying attention. That's when I remembered the security camera. 8 months earlier, after a minor incident with a delivery driver, I had installed a basic camera system in the shop. One camera behind the register, one in the small back office where I kept the notebook drawer. I had genuinely forgotten about it because nothing eventful had ever happened, and the footage cycled and overwrote itself every 30 days unless I manually saved it. I logged into the cloud storage account that night with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and I found it. 11 months earlier, 9 months before Whitfield and Wheat had even opened, time-stamped footage of Dana, alone in my back office on a Sunday morning when the shop was closed, photographing pages of my grandmother's notebook with her phone. She had let herself in with the key I'd given her for deliveries. She never made a delivery that day. I sat there and watched it 4 times. I didn't confront Dana again. I didn't post about it online. I didn't tell our mutual friends. Instead, Priya and I built a case, quietly, over the next 2 months. We documented the timeline, when I developed the recipe, when Dana gained access to it, when the footage showed her copying it, and when Whitfield and Wheat opened using an almost identical product under an almost identical branding scheme. Priya sent Craig Pruitt's business, the actual legal entity behind Whitfield and Wheat, a formal cease and desist letter along with a preservation notice, demanding they stop using the recipe and branding elements and preserve all their internal records, because litigation was likely. Here's the part Dana never expected. Craig Pruitt was a businessman first, and a brother-in-law second. The moment his company received a legal letter backed by actual video evidence of trade secret theft, he didn't hesitate for a second to protect himself. He hired his own separate attorney, distanced Whitfield and Wheat from any claim of originality, and, during a deposition Priya later told me about, because it became part of the public record in the eventual settlement, Craig admitted under oath that Dana had personally brought him a notebook of recipes belonging to a friend as the entire basis for the bakery concept. Dana had sold out her best friend to a man who, the second things got legally serious, sold her right back out to save himself. The case never made it to a full trial. 6 weeks after the cease and desist letter, Craig's business settled. A formal admission of trade secret misappropriation, a permanent injunction requiring Whitfield and Wheat to discontinue the sticky bun recipe and rebrand entirely, and a financial settlement that, combined with the 6 months of lost revenue Priya had calculated, covered nearly everything Cole and Crumb had lost, plus enough left over for me to open a second location the following spring. Dana was named individually in the settlement too, for her role in accessing my shop and my private records without authorization. She wasn't criminally charged. Priya and I ultimately decided pursuing a criminal complaint for unauthorized access wasn't worth the additional time and cost when the civil settlement had already made me whole. And honestly, by that point I wanted closure more than I wanted more courtrooms. But the settlement is a matter of public record in Buncombe County, and in a town the size of Asheville, that kind of record doesn't stay quiet for long. Craig Pruitt closed Whitfield and Wheat entirely 4 months after the settlement, rebuilding a brand from scratch under a cloud of a publicized trade secret settlement wasn't worth it to him. Dana's marriage to Craig's brother reportedly fell apart not long after. I heard, secondhand, through the same social circle she used to weaponize against me, that the financial strain and the public embarrassment were more than the relationship could hold. I never spoke to Dana again after the driveway conversation. She tried to reach out once, almost a year later, a text message that just said, "I hope you're doing well. I think about us a lot." I didn't respond. Some doors, once you understand what was really on the other side of them, don't need to be reopened. Cole and Crumb didn't just survive, it thrived. That settlement money let me open a second location downtown, hire a full pastry team, and finally take a real vacation for the first time in 4 years. Ruth, my Tuesday regular, still comes in every week for her cinnamon roll, and she still tells me it's the best in town, because this time, it actually is, made from the same hands and the same grandmother's notebook that started this whole story, sitting safely now in a fireproof lockbox instead of an unlocked drawer. People ask me sometimes if I regret trusting Dana as much as I did for 11 years. I don't, actually. I regret how it ended, but I don't regret the friendship, because for a long time it was real, or real enough. What I learned is that betrayal from someone close to you doesn't erase the good years. It just teaches you, painfully, to build better locks. Literal ones, and figurative ones too. If you made it this far, thank you for sitting with my story tonight. If this kind of story hits something in you, if you've ever trusted the wrong person and had to claw your way back, I want to hear about it in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Kaynaat Revenge, because next week, I've got a story about a man who found out his business partner had been forging his signature for 3 years, and what he did about it will absolutely make your jaw drop. Until then, take care of yourselves, and take care of the good people in your life. They're rarer than you think.